He's gonna.
Start recording.
Okay,
Okay, ready?
yes.
Okay, everybody ready? It's my pleasure to introduce Peggy Wolfson, one of our best lecturers, I think. And you're bound to learn something, because she always talks about stuff that nobody's ever heard of before. and today's another one on tardigrades. So Peggy.
Thank you. There's a stuffed tardigrade. There are lots of people who really know about these, or they wouldn't make them like this. My grandchildren have stuffed tardigrades. You bet. I'm feeding them right. So we're going to talk about tardigrades. They're hard to, pigeonhole. They are called micrometazoans, which means they're microscopic, which means they're right on the edge of visibility. If you had a little bit of water and a few in it, you might see very small specks. That's all you're going to see. They're smaller than a period at the end of a sentence. And they're pretty cool. I do absolutely mean that. This first picture is a picture looking down on the top of it, so you can't see that it has 8 legs. This one, you can see the 8 legs because you're looking up at its tummy.
Only see 6. Oh,
It has funny ones on the back. The back is to the left, and those are 2 legs.
Peggy, tell us how you even know about things like this.
Because I worked in biology. I don't know why I know. I never knew very much about them until I prepared this talk, and I learned a lot. So they molt, they shed their skin, and their skin or exoskeleton is chitin, same as a grasshopper, same as an ant, things like that. This one is Hypsibius dujardini. It has been studied a whole lot more than others because it's easy to grow them in the lab. You put them on a dish of agar, which is that stuff you grow bacteria on. They're not bacteria. And you put some green algae in with them so they have something to eat. And they grow and they make eggs and they're amazing. They are sometimes called moss piglets. Piglets because of their snout. And you can see the picture in the back is looking down on it, and you can see the pig snout. Also called moss piglets because a lot of them grow in moss. It is a damp environment. This is a less fortunate picture because this is taken with an electron microscope. And the preparation of a tardigrade, when you're going to put it in an electron microscope, makes its skin opaque. It makes the thing swell up in bad ways, and you can no longer recognize it. This is Ramazzotti ornatus, and you wouldn't know that unless you knew it before you prepared it for the electron microscope. So I don't like this kind of pictures. You just don't get enough detail. The little guy at the bottom is Johann Goetze. He discovered tardigrades in 1773, right after they invented microscopes. And it's got a teddy bear because that one reminded me of the teddy bear. And they're called water bears. This is the moss. This is one of the environments. They have found tardigrades almost every place they have looked on Earth. I have a list here of some of their environments, which include sand dunes in deserts, saltern. A saltern is these shallow puddles that are nearby the edge of the ocean. So because they're shallow, they evaporate a lot of their water and become stronger and stronger in saline, in salt, and they'll even grow in that. They grow in lichens, they grow in mosses, they grow in lake sediment and streams and rivers and oceans. They grow in the soil, they grow amongst the leaf litter. They even grow in the Australian marine caves, which have 22 species. So they grow every place we look for them, they're there. So it's a big deal. And who cares about this thing which is microscopic? It is not, it can't cause you a disease, and it looks like a nothing. Well, this is the toughest animal in the world. They are survivors. They can survive at extremely low temperatures, close to absolute zero. They can survive in high temperatures above the temperature of boiling water. They can endure high salt concentrations and over 1,000 times more radiation than ordinary animals, except roaches. Well, the roach can endure radiation, but the tardigrade can endure a lot more. For instance, the tardigrade can survive 600 atmospheric pressure.
6,000.
6,000. What did I say? 6. That's 6 times the pressure at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. They can survive very low air pressure, like they have habitats at the top of high mountains. In fact, they can survive the vacuum of space. They can live as much as 30 years without food and water. They can tolerate desert dryness and low oxygen concentration. Hard to believe, but they can do all that and more. This is a setup that was put outside the Photon M3 rocket for 10 days, open to space, open to low, what's it called, low something. Now I have to look for it because it's important to say it right. Low Earth orbit. It's very vacuum up there. And on the right side, there are 2 kinds. The yellow tardigrades in that picture are Rictursius coronifer, and the white ones are Hypsibius exemplaris, and there's junk in there too. But those are the 2 kinds of tardigrades that went up in space. I think that was, I forget what year. This is their temperature range. So you can see down towards absolute zero at the bottom and up over 300 degrees Fahrenheit at the top. And body temperatures in the middle.
How long do they leave them at low temperature or high temperature to determine whether they can survive?
Well, every experiment is different. So I don't think they leave them a long time near absolute zero, but you know, it's minus 328 Fahrenheit. That's about the temperature of liquid nitrogen, which is stinking cold. So that's, how long do they do it? Sometimes not a long time.
Is this a single animal, or is it a variety that can tolerate these extremes?
Okay, I'll get to that. How about that? I'll tell you in a minute. This is a picture that shows you about tardigrades. The bars, the black bars, indicate how long things have been around. Human beings have been around about 6 million years. Mammoths about twice that. Birds and crocodiles are 50 million years on the earth and still here. Roaches, much longer. Dinosaurs showed up around 220 million years ago, and they went away about 65 million years ago. Tardigrade at the bottom bar is 500 million years, and all of those capabilities it has are the reason they're still around. And 540 million years ago is the beginning of the Cambrian era. They arose during what was called the Cambrian explosion, when lots of stuff originated. The tardigrade is limnoterrestrial. That means that both of these pictures, I hope, show what I wanted them to. They have to have a film of water around themselves, because that's how they get oxygen, that's how they get rid of carbon dioxide. They have no respiratory system and no circulatory system because they're tiny. They don't need it. This is Echeniscus quadrispinosus. It has 4 spines. Those other curlier things are kind of like antenna. They have a term, I forget what it is right now. This is an electron micrograph, and this is the exception because this one has armor, and it's called the armadillo tardigrade. It can tolerate all that preparation they have to go through, which is actually, you put them in progressively stronger concentrations of alcohol until they're pretty much dried out, and that doesn't do the other kind very much good. This is what their claws look like. Most tardigrades have 4 claws on each leg. A few tardigrades have 8 claws on each leg, and rarely some of them have 6. This is the same armored tardigrade, and you can see that still the chitin is transparent, and you can see some of its innards, but not as well as the ones that don't have armor. These are all taken with a backlit microscope that has a camera attached, and there are various kinds. And what you may like to know is that there are somewhere between 1,600 and 2,000 different species of tardigrades. The pretty leafy thing on the upper left is a marine tardigrade. The rest of them are terrestrial or limnoterrestrial. So we're going to talk a little bit about their anatomy. And this was a really good way to do it. I really like this picture that I saw on the internet. The one on the left, those lines are the muscles, and you can see they attach to alternating legs, and they allow it to walk. And there's ones that go from the very backmost legs to the head. They move their head independently, which is pretty cool. The second, the digestive system, is the gut of this guy. It has the esophagus and the pharynx. It has a couple of stylets, which are black lines. Let me see. This is supposed to have a thing. So, okay. See these black curvy lines right there. Those are stylets, and they're attached to little muscles, and they push out of the mouth, and they pierce whatever cells they're interested in eating, because most of them have a liquid diet. So they suck the stuff out of other cells, and sometimes out of other tardigrades. The things down lower that are darker red, oops, I pushed the wrong button, are so much further. Oh, got it. These things are called Malpighian tubes. They are believed to be the kidneys of this animal. It's well equipped for what it does. It has salivary glands. You know, it has whatever it needs, has a mouth. The third picture is the nervous system. And unlike what you might imagine, this nervous system goes down the tummy side of the whole animal. It's ventral. The little black spots are simple eyes. That means immensely simple. That means their eyes have one cell each. And the last is the reproductive system. And when you put it together into a tardigrade, I didn't draw that, but that's kind of what it looks like. What's interesting, what might be interesting, I wish it wasn't doing that, is this is the entry for the sperm. These big purple things are immature eggs. And I think if we turn the volume down, anybody know how to do that? I don't either. No, that's not the picture I want. I'm going to skip ahead because I want the picture now. Okay, here we go. This tardigrade is in the process of molting, and they practice, reuse, and recycle their cuticle, made out of chitin, is being molted. And what they do is they lay their eggs at the same time, and the cuticle protects those eggs until they hatch. Probably not 100%, but looks like this. There you see a very different size of eggs. This is a picture of certain eggs of tardigrades. And this little bug at the bottom is very recently discovered, Turtilobiotis ovamutans. All of those eggs came from the same tardigrade. They don't know why they make them different sizes and different types. Nobody understands, but I guess it's what they're in the mood for, how much they ate for dinner, who knows why, but they're fascinating to me that they do that. So now I'm going to go back to whatever I missed here. Okay, this is the pharyngeal apparatus, so-called, which means the esophagus and the stylets I spoke about, and something called the pharyngeal bulb, which is muscular and helps them swallow into further down in their gut. And this part of the tardigrade is very different in each species, and so it's important because they can tell which kind they're looking at when they look at this. And here's a picture of a number of different ones. There's a lot more. It's probably 1,600. Here's one that looks, that's hard to do this. Here's one that looks like that, kind of looks like a T. You can tell that it's different anyway. And here's another. This is Milnesium tardigratum. It's very big and it's predatory, which is unique. Not unique as in the only one, but very few are predatory. And you can see that the one on the right is predatory and the one on the left is the kind that drinks its meals. And the kind of apparatus they have kind of reflects what their diet is. These are those one-celled eyes. They're kind of inverted cup-like, and the inside of them has lots and lots of little villi, and they're black to absorb light. And we did these amazing eggs. here's when you learn something. I learned this doing this study. Tardigrades are eutelic. That means that any single species of tardigrade has an exact number of cells when it comes out of the egg. It's mature, and it has a certain exact number of cells. It keeps that number of cells all of its life. It does grow and get bigger, but that's because the cells themselves get larger. So they can be anywhere from about 1,000 cells up to 40,000 cells, but no more than that and no less. And every one of any distinct species has its own number of cells, and that's eutelic. That's what that is. Isn't that cool? I never even heard of that before. So there is some big secrets that tardigrades have for all of those capabilities that we talked about. So the top picture is a tardigrade. It's active, it moves around, it eats and it lives and it has a good time. And then bad times come and it starts getting, let's say, too cold. And when it gets too cold, it begins to turn itself into what is called a ton or a tune. I like to say tune because it's not spelled like ton. So it is complete protective desiccation. Things get bad, the tardigrade pulls in its legs, it ejects 99% or more than 99% of its water and turns off its metabolism. It is left with 0.01% of its normal metabolism. The juices, and it does this, like, let's say if they stuck you in liquid nitrogen to freeze you, you wouldn't survive, but the tardigrade might. And it becomes a tune, and when conditions improve again, they absorb water and revive into the normal cells. It takes about 2 days. Those tardigrades that went up in space, they brought them back home, they put them in some water, they revived, laid eggs, and the legs produced normal tardigrades. So that's what they do. They make a tune. This is a tune. You can see the claws hanging out the sides. That's what it looks like when it's all desiccated and can face anything. This shows you the difference in size between the tardigrade and its tune or ton. That's misspelled. Don't notice that. This is sugar. It's really a very simple sugar. Sugars can be very complex. This is This isn't going well, is it? Can you hear me or not?
Yeah.
We're rattling through. Maybe just turn it down. No. Oh, that's good. How's that? That good? You didn't hear me? Thank you so much. Thank you. So this is a double sugar called a disaccharide, and it's 2 molecules of glucose, which is an everyday ordinary sugar stuck together. So simple animal, simple sugar. This sugar exists inside of the tardigrade. Way back when I was doing the anatomy, what I didn't say was inside of the tardigrade there's a big sac, you could say, that's called a coelom. And the coelom is an identifier. If you can't do A, you do B. Let's see. So, these are new hairdos. These are actually called the big name tardigrade intrinsically disordered proteins. So I'm going to explain to you who don't know a lot about proteins without blowing your head off. A protein, think of in your body, one of your proteins is hemoglobin. It's in the blood, it carries oxygen from the lungs to all your cells and carbon dioxide back. And in order to do this job, it has to be a very specific shape. So when those hemoglobin...
Just talk about our.
Okay, okay, take your time. So when those hemoglobin molecules get produced in a cell, they fold up in a very specific way. If they're not folded right, they don't work right. Think of sickle cell anemia. What happens? There's no oxygen. It's not working. Okay. These are called intrinsically disordered because they don't fold at all. They come out, they look like that. And that's how they stay. And they have a very important function in the tardigrade. When the tardigrade turns into a tune to protect itself, think of these like styrofoam peanuts. Only they're soft and they have no specific shape, and when the tardigrade shrinks, they hold all of those important proteins in place and in shape so that when they revive, they can still work. And that's what those things do, which is cool. So, the tardigrade can go both ways. I wonder what I want to say with this thing. These are very small. You couldn't see these if they were in the water on your slide, unless you had the microscope. And so if they're dried out and they're out in the environment, they can blow around. And if they blow to some place or other that has a good habitat for them to live in and they revive, a single one can make eggs without fertilizing them and then start a new population wherever they land. So, that's that. This is a Japanese tardigrade called Acutumcus antarcticus because it can live in the Antarctic. If anybody can't hear me, let me know. And these are the ones that have been found still, or been fooled around with. Poor tardigrades. Think of all the stuff they do to them to see if they'll still survive. This is one of the things. They took a whole bunch of them and encouraged them to turn into tuns and put them in the freezer. And for over 32 years, they take a couple out and see if they still survive. And they're still surviving it the last time they took them out to see. 32 years. And they had viable eggs that produced healthy babies. This is Echinuscoides sigismundi, cute little thing, and it has 8 claws on each leg. And it is a tidal zone tardigrade, so it lives where the tide goes up and down every day. That's good. This is another picture of it, different kind of microscope. This is the largest tardigrade. This is the largest one, and I think it's 1.5 millimeters. So you could almost see it curl. This is Cornicaniscus cornutus, and this one, which comes in many colors between red and yellow, has horns. You can see the horns a little bit here, and you can see them here. And those teeny eyes. And it's probably the brightest colored tardigrade that we know of. So this is kind of cool. Do tardigrades get sick? Well, yes, it turns out, and I'll tell you a story about that. They can get sick from bacteria, but for us, from the scientific side, it's very hard to look at a tardigrade and know which were the beneficial bacteria, which were neutral, and which were infectious. Kind of hard to tell, but we try. This, of course, is a tardigrade that was in the electron microscope and is dead. I think I showed this earlier, and I looked at this, and I wanted so bad to know what that tardigrade was, and I was hunting, and I wasn't finding anything. And finally, I found these, and I said, okay, what the heck are these? These are protozoa that grow on tardigrades and make them sick. They're using their food supply. They don't survive a full life if they have these. If you look here, this is kind of cool. This has cilia at the ends. You can't see them real well, but you can see them a little bit. This is another type that's also a ciliophore. The previous slide was a ciliophore, and they look like corduroy. They're kind of interesting, make the guy sick. There are a lot of kinds of fungus that attack tardigrades, which kind of makes sense. They have to be around moisture when they are alive and moving, so you would think so. And this is just a whole bunch of infection on a tardigrade. You can see in the middle, you can see its pharyngeal area, so that's how you know what it is. This is the same fungus after it has progressed a while and it's making spores and interested in making somebody else sick. It's a Balacephala. It sounds like a ballerina. And you can see that it invades the insides of the tardigrade. This is an artist rendition. So, this is Milesium tardigradum, and it is parasitized by a little kind of fungus. And this is its face, and you can see one little bit coming out. So, what are these bright spots in the tardigrade tummies? Well, I had to figure that out. And this is what the figure out part is. The tardigrade molts. When it molts, it also loses its claws on all of its feet. And it loses its stylets. I have not been able to find a picture that shows the stylets. I think the stylets may be lost out the mouth and not with the rest of the chitin, which goes off the back of the tardigrade when it molts. That's what I think. And as a result, sometimes they eat these stylets that were discarded. And this is what it looks like. They are a calcium substance, same thing that they make shells. It's argonite or calcium carbonate. And that's what it is. And if you put them in the right kind of a microscope, they shine. So that's all it is. This is a very interesting guy. Let me remember the name of it.
Do you need a mic?
No, I think I'm okay. Do you need a mic? Anybody need a mic?
No.
Okay. So this guy is Diaphyscon Ringay. And he lives oceanside, in the sands, below the waterline inside the sand. And he covers himself with these, which is called Emiliana Huxley. It is a green algae. It causes algae blooms. And what the part of it that you're looking at is just a calcium substance. And those little oval holes right here are where the green algae is living. So this is not alive, or it would have algae filling up those little spaces. And this is what becomes chalk. If you want chalk, here it is. And it's kind of interesting that the tardigrade hides under it in the sand. This is lunchtime for tardigrades. And what they're eating is a green algae, and there's an awful lot of green algae that they eat. Let's see. So most of the tardigrades that we've been looking at look very similar to each other. And there are two kinds of tardigrades. And all those ones that look kind of plain, those are called eutardigrades. EU just means ordinary or real or something like that. And these are heterotardigrades. And the tardigrades that grow in water or in the ocean have a really big variety of appearance, whereas the ones that grow terrestrially are all pretty much look the same. So this is Batilipes. It almost looks like it's smiling, but that's not its mouth. But it has suction cups on the end of the claws of its feet to help it move around in the water. Here's another one with suction cups, and it's also Batilipes, but they didn't say what the species was. May not have a species yet, because these are still being studied. And as you can imagine, it's much harder to find them in the ocean water than it is on land. So there may be untold numbers of kinds in the ocean that we just haven't studied yet. This is Orzalistusfelopus, also grows in the ocean. You're looking at its most recent dinner is the dark stuff in the middle. And this is Fluorectus himind. This guy has wings, and they're made out of chitin. And you can see this part of it a little bit. Must help it swim, don't you think? And it's just called chitinous wings. And a lot of people take photographs of these. One photograph of this guy was the winning photograph in National Geographic's in recent years. They do photography contests. This is a freshwater species, Turtilobiotis, and it's next to the very recognizable Spirogyra green algae, probably thinking about lunch. This is a beautiful picture of a tardigrade whose face is to the left, and he is eating a nematode. A nematode is a worm. A nematode evolved in the same branch as the tardigrade, and later, and had, when the animal had shed its legs and stuff like that. And these are believed to be very closely related. However, that doesn't mean very much. It's just, they're very distantly related, but we don't know anything that came in between. So that's how that is. This guy is Robert Verdan, very happy man, and he does the best photographs of tardigrades. The most detailed, the most focused, and he lives in Canada, and he knows a lot about Canadian tardigrades. And this is his offices, which he must be proud of because they put the picture on the internet. So these are the many types of camera/microscopes that one could use in making pictures. And he does a lot of nature pictures, regular size, as well as other microscopic things. And this is that animal I talked about before that was in the bigger picture, and it's a drawing. And it led me to the protozoa that attack tardigrades, but it doesn't really look like them, does it? It has to, if that's what it was, the artist who drew it would have drawn it better. So I had to keep looking. I had to keep looking because it was making me crazy, and it brought me to really fun things. This is another picture, and it looks kind of more balloonish, and the genus, how did I say it? Every time I say this, I have to say it different. I have no idea, but Bubulubus, which may be the way you say it, and it means a balloon. Okay, maybe it's balloons, you know. Maybe it's a cloud with balloons.
What are those leaves sticking out of them?
Yeah, what the heck are they? Those are the balloons.
Oh, those are the balloons?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This is a marine tardigrade. This is a blown glass image of the marine tardigrade. And that was the end point of finally figuring out that it really does have those balloons, and it helps them propel themselves in the water, and they can flatten out if they don't want to have anything in them and they want to sink down lower, I guess. That's everything I have to say, so you need to ask me questions.
Well,
Wow.
Okay. Any questions?
Where do they fit in the food chain?
They eat all kinds of things. The ones that are predatory eat rotifers. Do you know what they are? They're kind of like a one-celled animal, but they're almost the size of the tardigrade. They eat those. They eat lots of green algae, and what eats them? Things like rotifers. They're all of similar size, and they eat each other. And if you've ever studied pond water and the stuff in pond water, and they're all those bizarre shapes of things. I wonder if I still have the picture. See, I could hunt for a picture I have of what they eat. Let me see. Nope, I don't have it in this set, in this thing.
What if I swallowed one?
You have probably swallowed them. They are so ubiquitous in the world, they can't hurt you whatsoever. They're everywhere. They probably get in your rice or, you know, stuff like that, rice. They probably grow in rice paddies because it's wet. And they can't hurt you, and there they are. They're little crawly around things. If you came in early enough, you saw them crawling around. And I could show that thing again. Let's see if I can. Let's see what I can do here. Just a second, I'll see if I can turn it back on and we can look at what they look like moving around. So this is what they look like moving around. Those cells that I talked to you about that you could see moving, and we'll see them again, those are called coelomocytes, which means cells that grow in the coelom. And they are like the picnic basket for the tardigrade. They are their storage for energy and nutrition. And they're moving around when he's walking. These are all coelomocytes, those things. Down on the other side. They're interesting. And you can see them, you can see the insides move. It's really fascinating because we're not transparent, aren't you glad? And that's how they move. They're just very tiny. They look extremely awkward. They're called water bears because somebody thinks they walk like bears.
Is that a parasite hanging off the bottom of them?
It's probably junk. I don't think it's a parasite. But, you know, they're always stuck in the stuff they live in. The highest density of population for these are in the sediment of lakes, where there's about 2,500 per liter. So that's pretty cool.
Do they survive in the stomach?
I doubt it. I don't think so. That's a tune right there. What is that? It's another one. They must have done something to these guys to make them begin to shrink.
So is, you talked about them being able to reproduce asexually,
Mm-hmm.
but then you also talked earlier about an opening for sperm.
Yes. So they have male and female, and they in normal conditions, you know, their eggs are fertilized. But if there's no male around, they will make eggs, and some chemical reason or some reason in the reproduction of the DNA is why they will reproduce without the guy because he's not home. That's called parthenogenesis. Very interesting things. So they've been around the world a very long time. If there is an event of, you know, a planetoid in the Earth or something, they survive it. They have survived through 5 major mass extinctions, and they're still there. They're really quite amazing. They're cute enough.
What is this lacrimaria there? Is that the wormy little thing?
Yes, yes. Yeah, this has various titles.
You say nematodes came before them?
After,
They came after them?
yes.
Do you know what is the first animal that
No.
did?
The first, well, of course, you know, the first things on Earth were single-celled.
Sure, but what was the first animal?
What
like
was the
that?
first animal? These are ecdyzoa. Ecdyzoa means that they are small and they molt. And I don't think that ecdyzoa were the first ones, although they're simple. These are simple animals, and the complexity of this is astounding for how small it is. But they're not the first. I find out for you. What was the first animal? We may not know. There were certainly communal bacteria before there were animals. So the cells grew together like stromatolites.
Imagine slime and stuff like that.
Slime, exactly. But that's still not animal. Where are the animals? I don't know.
Yes, Google.
So the next time I talk, and I don't know when that is, I'm going to talk about Socotra Island, which is a small island in the Indian Sea, and it is kind of like another Galapagos, and it's just as strange things that are there. And I have most of a talk written for that.
Peggy,
Yeah.
I heard that tomorrow at the warehouse, there'll be a sale on tardigrades.
No, this is the only big one here, and it's mine. You can get bigger ones. You can get them about this big. Just look on Amazon. This is a very bad tardigrade because it has 3 claws on each leg, and we all know they only have 4 or 6 or 8.
Oh my.
Its eyes are wrong. Its eyes are more like cat eyes or something, not single cell. It has 6 segments, and the tardigrade has only 5 segments. 4 have a pair of legs on each, and the 5th one is the head. That's a hydra, the big thing. And these are fun, and they're all over the internet. People are so interested in them, and there's so many, and they haven't been studied deeply for a long time, that you could probably go out here in LVT and not only find tardigrades, but find tardigrade species that haven't been described yet. So that's your job. That's your next job.
It's probably a lunch.
So they're just fun. They're just interesting. Green hydra on a snail.
Thanks, Peggy.
You're welcome.
Okay, if there's no more questions,
Thank you very much.
there's a question in the back.
Oh, okay.
Is red tide here in Florida, is that an algae?
That is an algae, yes. It's
Do these
nasty.
guys eat that algae?
They might. I don't know of any that eat red algae, but they might.
Look at the lights.
Somebody put the lights on? Yeah, put on the lights. I'll just let that play for a while. It's about 10 minutes.
Light switches.
Start again. Okay. That's good talk.
Yeah, talk again, talk about, I've never heard of you.
Well, same as Socotra. Where does he those? That was